All right, it's time to learn how we can take these apps that we've been building all our own and sharing them with the world. One of the coolest things that I love about Android development is how quickly you can get your apps on the App Store. So, the reason that I say this is because I initially started as an iOS developer, and I remember my first time trying to get my app on the App Store. It took weeks to figure out the whole process about how to upload my app to Apple's App Store. I got it rejected 2 times before I finally got approved. In between each decision was about a week and a half's worth of waiting, and it was just awful. It was terrible to see this thing that I'd spent so much time on take that much effort to just get through to the App Store. Whereas with Android, with the Google Play Store, it's much, much simpler. So you can take this thing that you've created and very quickly share that with family and friends. So that's one of the things I love about Android. Now, in order to get this rocking and rolling, I'm just going to use one of our past apps here. I'm using this list view demo that we had created before this. I just want to show you what the process would be. I'm not actually going to put this into the store, but I want to walk you through everything that you would need. So the first step is to go to developer.android.com. And so you're going to need a Google developer account. Now, if you don't have one of those yet, it's going to prompt you for everything. But once you're to this page, you want to click on this Play Console. So this is going to take you to a screen where it's going to ask you to sign in then with an account. So go ahead and do this. If you don't already have a Google account, get one, but do that and I'll meet you at the next step. So once you're there, you're going to have to go through a series of steps here. And it's essentially you have to agree to the terms and you also have to pay a registration fee. And it's a one-time $25 fee. So I know that's kind of annoying that you got to pay money to get your app on the App Store. But again, compare this with the Apple world, it's $99 per year. It's an ongoing reoccurring payment where this is a one-time $25 thing. So we're in a pretty good situation comparatively to what's out there. But go ahead and go through those steps and then I'll meet you once you're finished with all that. So once you've gone ahead and gone through that process, you should be at this console screen here and you can click on this Publish an Android app on Google Play. So we want to make a new one here. It's going to ask you for your language. It's also going to ask for a title. You can always come back and change this, so don't worry too much about this. So I'm going to call this List View Fun, something like that. And I'll go ahead and hit Create. So this will then take you to the details for your app, and there's all sorts of information that you can fill out here. So there's stuff like the title, the short description, full description, all these things that are going to show up on Google Play. There's graphical assets. So this mostly includes screenshots, but also you've got these high-res versions of your icons and even TV banners. I thought this was really interesting. The Daydream 360-degree image for those people using the Daydream VR stuff. You can even include like a promo video. You got to say what category you want this information to be in. Just all sorts of details that you want to fill out. So we're going to come back and talk about screenshots in just a second. But I do want to focus on one thing, and that's actually uploading your app to the App Store here, because you can fill in these details, but it's another thing to actually get a file up to say, hey, this is what I want to release to the store. Now to do that, you want to go here to App Releases over on the left, and here, this is where you're going to release an APK file. So the APK contains everything about your app, all the images that you have in there, all your main activities, your manifests, the layouts, everything is inside of the APK file. And so when you're here, you can actually use this to do like some beta and alpha testing. I thought it was pretty funny that they split between the two there. But we want to work with production because we have an app that's ready to rock and roll. So you just want to go to Manage Production and you want to create a release. And you want to go ahead and say, I'm going to continue with the signing stuff. Yes, accept the terms. Okay, and this now allows you to add an APK, which we have to go get this from Android Studio. So let's move back to Android Studio. And what we're going to do once we're here is we need to open up our variants. And so if you have build variants over here on the left side, I need you to click on that. If not, go to Help, and if you just search for variants, you're going to get the build variants options up there. Okay, so with all of that in place, what you want to go to do is click on this build variant and change it from debug to release. So every time we've been running our app, it's been in quote unquote debug mode. Now we want to go to release mode, which is going to create an APK file for us. All right. Now, before we can go ahead and just, build this and let this thing rock and roll, we have to sign our app. And basically what signing our app does is it says, hey, we are the only people that are going to be able to make updates to this app for the foreseeable future. So in order to do this, we want to go up to the top here to build, and then we're going to come down and say generate signed APK. Remember, that's the file that contains everything. So go ahead, click on that, and it's going to ask you what module you want to do this from. We just want to choose the default app that we have there. Now, when you get to this next part, it's going to ask for this key store path. So it's basically saying, do you want to make a new one of these? And yes, we don't have an existing one, so we're going to say create new. Now, once you click on that, it brings up even more details here, and this first going to ask, where do you want to save this? So I'm just going to go ahead and throw mine on the desktop. So I'll go ahead and choose that. Then you have to make a password for this. I'm going to do a fairly simple password, but feel free to do something more complex for your app. Then you've got to make a alias here and go ahead and choose what you want this to be. I'm going to call it something like list view key, something like that. I know it's kind of simple. And again, up here in the key store path, we should also give this a proper name. So I'm going to call this maybe something like list view key store. Okay. So with that in place, again, you got to have another password. So we'll go ahead and I'm just going to reuse the same one. Feel free to do different if you'd like. You've got to choose how long you want this to be valid for. And I think 25 years is pretty good. I don't know if the Google Play Store is going to be around in 25 years. Who knows what kind of tech we're going to have in that time frame. So with that in place, you want to go ahead and put in your information. So I'll just say Nick Walter here, organization, unit. Honestly, you can just copy and paste your name for each of these. It's not too big of a deal. City or locality, again, list it if you want. I'll do SLC, Utah, in the old US of A. Okay. So with all that information in place, you're going to go ahead and hit OK. And it's going to say, hey, I've got all this information. Is this what you want? The next thing that you want to do is make sure that this remembers your password. So go ahead and check that box. So go ahead and hit this next button. And with this, you want to make sure that you save this to a place where then you can go get to it and upload. Build type, we want to make sure this is release and have both of these signature versions checked. So with that, go ahead and click on finish here. And this is going to go make that APK file. And it might take a little bit of time because it's trying to recreate your app as a whole. But luckily for me, that didn't take too long. But if does take a bit of time, don't worry, that's usually expected. So with that, let's go back to Safari here. And now we'll just say browse file. I have saved mine to my desktop. So look, here it is. It came in this release folder. And there's that app release.apk. So go ahead and choose that. That's going to upload it here to Google Play. And it will tell us what it thinks. And oh, it is not happy with what we've given it. And that's because we had, when we were setting this up, just the com.example package name in there, which I guess has been taken by someone else that was, working through an example. So in order to fix this, we can do this. Let's go back to Android Studio. This will be a good process for you to see because we've always mentioned, you can have it be your website in reverse, you can have it be your name, but you can always come back and change it. Well, this is how you can change it if you need to. So once we have that in place, you would want to do the same thing here for, like the tests and everything. We're not using the tests in our app, and so I'm just going to go ahead and actually just delete these. So I'll get rid of the Android test, and we'll come back and do the second test here once Android Studio has finished up. Okay, so it looks like it did that, and then we'll go ahead and delete this one as well. So we'll go ahead and get rid of those. Okay, so once we've done that, we can go ahead and change this back to the compact view so that we can go ahead and see those items a little bit easier. You can see we have a little bit of an issue here because we had, I'm going to get rid of this example directory in that one, and there we go. Now if we go back to compact, there we go. That's looking a lot better for us. Okay, so with this in place, that was a good change to make. There's also one more thing that we need to change, and so we need to go open up one of our Gradle files. So we're going to go down here to the Gradle scripts. Make sure you open the one that says Module App. And once you have this open, this is where you'd want to have the appropriate application ID. And it looks like we've got this in place. We've got com.zappycode.listViewDemo. It's listing what we have there. So that must have done that in the refactor. So good to know that that all worked. But now that we have that in place, we can go back and do our build and do generate the APK. We'll say next to this, put in our password. And with all that, make sure both those are checked. We will hit finish. Okay, so we'll give Android Studio a second to finish up here. And there we go. Now, after this unfortunate error, let's go ahead and try this one more time. We'll browse our files, try this new release.apk, and come on, be nice to us, Google Play. Moment of truth here, drum roll. Look at that, it's processing. It's kind of going through the app, and look at that. Good news. So we have version 1.0 here ready to rock and roll, and that means that we now have an APK file. So with this, the next step for us would be to review and roll out, but there's so many details that we have to go sort of fill out here in our app. And so, as I had mentioned before, if we go back here to the store listing, this is where the real meat and potatoes of the Google Play Store is. One of the big things that you'll need is screenshots. You don't necessarily need them, but I think it makes your app that much better. Well, in fact, I'm reading the text here, at least 2 screenshots are required. I know before maybe they weren't, but it looks like now you need at least 2. So I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and get these in case you're not sure how to do that. So we're going to go back to Android Studio, and under build variants, we're going to switch this back to debug so that we can run the app on one of our simulators. So we'll go ahead and, oh, my devices weren't showing up for a second. I was wondering what was going on there. But basically, you're going to run your device, and I'm going to show you how you can very quickly take some screenshots from it. It basically consists of hitting this little camera button here. And what that does is it takes a screenshot, and then you can upload that full res image to the Google Play Store here, which is pretty great. Okay, so that's one thing that you're going to want to set. Really, the rest of these options, you're just going to go through, like the content rating, going to tell you, what kind of stuff is going to be inside of your game, your app, whatever it is that you're making, pricing and distribution. Do you want this to be a free app? If you do want to do a paid app, you have to create a merchant account with Google and get that all set up, but it's not too much trouble. You can set where you want this app to be available. There's just all sorts of good details here. Is your app going to contain ads? Is it primarily directed at children? Does it include Google Android Wear stuff? There's just so many things that you've got here. Also, in-app purchases. If your app contains that, then you can go ahead and get that all set up here, all sorts of information. But I'm going to leave that up to you because this is going to be so specific for whatever app it is that you're uploading to the store here. It's really just direct to you about how you're going to go ahead and work with that. So let me go ahead and show you here on the emulator. Looks like the app opened up here. So if we go ahead and we hit this little camera button, that's going to save a screenshot, and I believe it saves that to our desktop. No, it doesn't. So let's see if we can do that one more time and find where it is. Oh, there, it had taken a screenshot. It was just taking a while to show up. So there it is. We've got the screenshot. It's showing up on the desktop. We could then take this and go back under store listing and upload this as one of our screenshots. So there you have it. I'd love to see whatever app it is that you've created. Please feel free to share it with Rob and I on Twitter. We'd love to see what your app looks like. My Twitter handle is @NickChuckWalter, and Rob is @TechRob. So please let us know how the app goes, and we can't wait to see what you've created.